Now, South Sudan is preparing to hold its first ever election in December, but it's been repeatedly delayed due to civil war and political tensions. Now, can the country pull off a credible election in 6 months? But why has the world's youngest nation failed to hold an election so far? Let's take a closer look at some of the obstacles. Now, the country was expected to hold its first ever election in December 2015 under the transitional constitution that was published when it gained independence from Sudan in 2011. But the poll was postponed when a civil war erupted 2 years later. Now, the conflict ended with the signing of the revitalized 2018 peace agreement and formation of a 3-year transitional unit government, bringing President Salva Kiir and Vice President Riek Machar together in a coalition. It also called for elections in December 2022 before their term ended. But the transitional government extended its term in office by 2 years in 2022, citing delays in implementing the 2018 peace deal, moving the elections to late 2024. Now, in September that year, the transitional government extended its term by another 2 years to 2026, citing a lack of electoral preparedness while committing to no further delays beyond the new election date, now set for December 22nd. But the National Election Commission says it's concerned about political instability in some parts of the country. Now, a recent surge in violence has displaced nearly 300,000 people in Jonglei alone, adding to the more than 2 million people already uprooted from their homes. Election officials are also facing a budget shortfall of $229 million.
There are many challenges facing the Commission, and we strongly request the government to speed up amending the existing legal gaps and to provide all basic needs within a short period to enable us to proceed with our duties and responsibilities in the coming few months.
Now, those gaps include lack of a nationwide population census or voter registry since independence. Patrick Oyet in Juba tells us how the government plans to overcome some of these challenges and what else is at stake.
The 2018 Peace Accord provides that general elections be conducted before the end of the transitional period. That interim period ends in February 2027. Their elections are expected for the positions of president and 2 houses of parliament at the national level, and also for governors of 13 regions, members of regional parliament, as well as officials of local government. South Sudanese people in the capital Juba are divided over holding the elections this year. Some told TRT that the announcement of the date of polls was a welcome move. However, some civil society organizations say they are concerned because voter registration has not yet begun. Civic and voter education has also not started. The main opposition leader in the country, Riek Machar, who would challenge President Salva Kiir, is currently facing trial on charges of murder and crimes against humanity. A new constitution was supposed to be drafted and passed before the polls, but with a few months to the election, the constitution is not yet drafted. A population census was supposed to take place before the polls. That census is yet to be conducted. The government now says it wants it to happen after elections. It says it also wants a new constitution made after the polls. This atmosphere of uncertainty has been made worse recently by instability and violence in the country. Troops belonging to Mr. Machar are clashing with government soldiers in some parts of South Sudan. Mr. Machar's troops say they will fight until their leader is released from house arrest.
For more on this, we now turn to Jan Pospisil, who is a Sudan affairs analyst and an associate professor Center for Trust, Peace and Social Relations in Coventry University. He joins us live from Juba, South Sudan. Thank you so much for joining us here on Africa Matters. 6 months to the elections, and the Election Commission is doing all it can to ensure that elections are held in December. But then can South Sudan overcome some of the challenges that have repeatedly delayed elections?
Well, this is a good question. The problem is the Election Commission had to announce the date now, because according to the law, they had to announce the election date half a year before, which they exactly did on 22nd of June. The date on December 22nd had been confirmed for a while, but remains still in the balance. It's more than unsure if there will be real elections to be held. There had not been any voter registration yet. The commission is now fairly okayly staffed, but still there's a lot of funds missing, and there is still ongoing political turmoil with the main opposition party still not registered as an official party, so de facto unable at the moment technically to even contest in elections. There is also issues with the Election Act. There's a lot of challenges around these elections at the moment that make it more than unsure that this date can be kept.
So from what you're saying is that as it stands now, we're not sure whether South Sudan will be able to hold its elections come December.
Well, the question here is also, is there the right political will? And there's hardly any doubt, if you speak with observers, that the president himself and part of the ruling SPLM want these elections, also to legitimize their rule, because there's hardly any doubt that in these elections they would win. However, most of the opposition parties, the strongest opposition, claim that key provisions in the peace agreement have not been implemented. There's no census, there's no permanent constitution, there's several elements that have been foreseen in the peace agreement that have not been done in the transition period, and they would prefer, without doubt, for these elections to be postponed again. And they find allies in some parts of the SPLM, because even here, the transitional government is a bloated, really big government. They have at the moment 5 vice presidents. So with any election result, there will be lots of politicians losing their jobs in a post-transitional framework. The transitional framework is quite profitable for quite a lot of people, so there is huge political resistance as well.
Okay. So now, the current president is expected to run for these elections. Are we likely to see that change, and who is likely to be his main political rival, owing to the fact that the vice president is already under house arrest?
Yeah, but we have to be realistic here. Riek Machar, the first vice president, is under house arrest, but he wouldn't stand a chance even in elections that would not be rigged and would be free and fair. He would not have a chance realistically against Salva Kiir. The main issue is, and I think that's why the president and the circles around him are pushing for these elections, is that Salva Kiir is not getting younger. His health is not the best. If he wants to run, and he's clear, and he just declared in a trip to Warab, his home state, that he intends to run, this has to happen really soon if he has the health and the capacity really to do it. There will be challenges within his own ruling party, and I think the most interesting political process we will see if this goes forward is who would be the running mate of Salva Kiir, because this would then in the end give us some indication who could really be a successor of Salva Kiir, which is at the moment totally open. But the game around Riek Machar, to be fair, we have seen some polling. He would not poll more than 20% in even free and fair elections, so I would not see him as the main political rival.
When South Sudanese voters head to the polls in December, let me just get your response on this. What's at stake? Should the country go ahead and carry out the election in December without security guarantees? Because remember, the people who have been displaced and the 2018 peace deal, some of the requirements in that peace deal have not yet been implemented.
Yeah, I mean, this is in essence what you say here, the argument of the opposition and the IO, the party of Riek Machar, the arrested first vice president, that for these reasons, these elections should not go forward. But there is another argument which is, I think, as convincing, and this is we can postpone these elections forever. The situation won't change. We have now 2 extensions to the transitional period. We have not seen any change in this transitional period. And it's fair to assume if we have another extension in 2 years, we are sitting with the exact same situation with exactly the same problems. So there is a real question to ask, we're waiting for what? So if we want to have this country move in any kind of direction, these elections probably have to happen.
And Gino is about to ask you that in terms of what it would take to hold free, fair and credible elections, owing to the fact that, the Election Commission has already said that they have a deficit of $229 million. That is a lot of money.
Yeah, but we have to see, this is, of course, there's politicking behind. These numbers might be inflated. There is, of course, though, a significant deficit there in order to hold free and fair elections throughout the country. We have to take into account this is also a very difficult kind of place to hold elections. The infrastructure is super bad. We don't have reliable roads. Infrastructure in parts of the country. So it is expensive to hold elections here. The Election Commission just got last week 6 million, I guess, from oil revenues. That shows a tiny bit of commitment, but of course this is not close to money to be sufficient to get these elections done. The international partners have so far not signaled any willingness to pay. There is kind of speculations if Russia would come in, since they just opened an embassy and have trained election staff, if the Russians would pay something for these elections. But even if the money is there, of course, the second question you ask, would these elections be free and fair? The question here is the government would probably win even in free and fair elections, but often rigging and real issues develop more bottom up than top down, and would be in the polling stations, in the constituencies. When powerful local politicians want to win, they would probably make sure to win no matter what. And here the whole process of transparency, of political pressure, of rigging starts.
All right, and just finally, as you wind up in a minute, all eyes will be on South Sudan come December. But the main question that people are looking at is what will the African Union and other international organizations do to ensure that they are ensuring that this election is well conducted in a way that South Sudan will not end up in war?
Well, their capacities are not so big in doing much. The African Union has huge issues at the moment in the region here, even with Sudan. We have seen in the Ethiopian elections, which were everything but free and fair, that the regional organizations rather be quiet. We have not heard critical remarks really from African Union and IGAD towards the Ethiopian elections, so I would not assume too much. There will be support by the UN. Clearly, UNMISS, the peacekeeping mission in South Sudan, has an election team. There's a joint UN election team. They might offer capacity support. But from African Union and IGAD, to be fair, I don't expect too much.
All right, thank you so much, Jan Pospesel, who is Sudan Affairs Analyst and Associate Professor, Center for Trust, Peace and Social Relations in Coventry University. Thank you for your time. Still to come here on Africa Matters.
My name is Mqondisi Dube. I'm here in Odze to see how the latest outbreak of foot and mouth has disrupted livelihoods in Botswana, how it has impacted household incomes and forced consumers to turn from beef to alternative protein sources.
But first, we head to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, where more than 1,000 people have been infected with Ebola, according to the Health Ministry. That makes it the highest first month total of any outbreak. In the epicenter of the outbreak, Mongbwalu, the only local general hospital, is overwhelmed by the number of Ebola patients. Prosper Heringorora visited the area and brings us this report.
Freddy Toko is devastated. This father of one and shopkeeper lost his sister to Ebola last May. Now his wife is hospitalized with the same disease here at the Mongbwalu hospital.
This disease caused distress not only for me, but for others as well. It separates us physically and spiritually in such a way that we may never see our loved ones again. When this disease strikes you, it's that you see.
The response to the outbreak continues in the Mongbwalu and in more than 30 other affected zones. This is the very first time the Mongbwalu region has faced an Ebola outbreak. Local communities don't understand what is happening and are lashing out at their response teams. Community leaders are stepping in to help residents understand the facts.
The awareness campaigns are starting to bear fruit. Some residents are coming here to the treatment center of their own accord to receive care. And even those who were initially resisting are beginning to understand the reality.
According to the Congolese authorities, the very first deaths from Ebola Bundibugyo were recorded here in Mongbwalu. It is a remote area which relies heavily on gold mining. But because of that, it attracts many people from far and wide. They fear that people are contracting Ebola here and then spreading it over a wide area when they live. 15 people have recovered from Ebola here, but the hospital is overwhelmed due to logistical challenges in containing the disease.
Patients were coming in with fever, headaches, vomiting, and diarrhea, just as is the case with other diseases, including malaria and typhoid fever, before the outbreak was confirmed.
Congolese authorities have opened 4 labs to make testing blood samples faster. Residents here now hope the epidemic will be contained soon so that their lives can return to normal. Prosper Heringorora, Africa Matters, Mongbwalu.
To Botswana next, where another viral disease is impacting people's diet. Now, the country is facing a serious outbreak of foot and mouth disease that's disrupting local supply and beef exports to Europe. But even though meat producers are facing losses, it's also leading to healthier eating habits, as Mkondisi Dube finds out from the capital, Gaborone.
Andrew Itumeleng, a subsistence cattle farmer in Otse, 60 kilometers from Gaborone, wishes to see his animals roam the pastures freely. But due to the widespread foot and mouth outbreak in Botswana, this is not possible.
We are now forced to keep livestock within our homes to prevent the spread of foot and mouth. At the same time, we are suffering as there is no beef.
As Andrew points out, the outbreak of foot and mouth disease has led to severe beef shortages, with some butcheries forced to close.
We have a situation, we don't have meat here. The only meat we have is from the state-owned meat supplier, BMC, but it's too expensive. It has affected business, and we're even afraid of losing our jobs.
Through the Botswana Meat Commission, the country exports more than 9,000 tons of beef to Europe annually. As a major beef-producing nation, Botswana relies heavily on its livestock sector, with beef making up to about 80% of all agricultural exports. So when faced with recurring outbreaks of foot and mouth disease, beef production and trade is heavily disrupted.
Situation of foot and mouth, people are now supporting in large numbers because a lot of people are coming to taste donkey meat. Here we have fried, we have sokwapa, we have seswa, we have braai, we have siviti.
We met a customer on the street who already understood the advantages of consuming this beast of burden.
I prefer donkey meat, and now more so that there is the outbreak of foot and mouth, there is no such concern with donkey meat, and the meat is healthy.
If slaughtered and processed properly, donkey is in fact a leaner, healthier meat. In an effort to contain the spread of foot and mouth, the government has banned the slaughter of cloven-hoofed animals and limited livestock movement in affected zones. Mkondisi Dube, Africa Matters, Gaborone.
To Sudan now, where there is growing anger as the National Army welcomes top paramilitary defectors into its ranks. Families of victims fear that these former Rapid Support Forces commanders could be granted immunity from prosecution if they are convicted of war crimes. Hope Kirube reports.
In this Darfur displacement camp, families are sheltering after losing everything to the civil war. Halima Ismail still lives with the terror of a village raid which residents say was led by former RSF commander Ali Rizgala in 2024.
They whipped me while I was carrying my son on my back. Look at my scars. I can't forgive these RSF soldiers, even if they are with the army at the front lines.
The military says defections like Rizgala are tactical moves to win the 3-year war. By welcoming its former enemies into the military, analysts say the army could be trying to exploit tribal fractures and break the RSF from within. Al Nur Guba is another top North Darfur commander who also defected to the military in April.
There is no leader in the RSF that joined the army in order to be free from accountability. All these joining forces, including commanders, soldiers, or any person who committed a crime, a clear one against someone, are all subject to the law and free of any attempt to avoid punishment.
Kahil Mohammed Al-Amin stares at a photo of his son who was killed during the paramilitary occupation, vowing never to forgive the RSF.
The public right is where the state has the choice to take whatever decision it wants. They are free when it comes to the public right. But the private right remains connected to me. I will neither forgive nor pardon RSF at all.
The war in Sudan has already displaced over 14 million people, and fighting is still going on in some parts of the country, leaving civilians caught between military strategy and the demand for justice. Hope Kirubi, Africa Matters.
To Mauritania now, where we meet some African families who are stranded in Mauritania after failed attempts to reach Europe. Their dreams for a better life and improving their children's education have also been disrupted, but as Zama Lutuli reports, a literacy center in the north of the country is trying to keep hope alive.
In a small classroom in Nouadhibou, Mauritania, migrant children are practicing mathematics. For many of them and their teachers, this literacy center offers something they've been missing: a sense of stability.
I've arrived in Mauritania with 5 people. 2 are now in Spain, 1 is in France, and 2 died at sea during a crossing. I lost 2 friends at sea, so these are some of the examples that made me sit down and reflect, asking myself, why not to wait, why not to pursue other goals?
Once the children pass their exams, they're absorbed into the schooling system. But some families still cling on to the hope of making the dangerous sea journey to Europe. It's during this period of waiting that some children fall through the cracks and are deprived of education.
We noticed that there are many migrant children who were going out fishing, who were begging in the streets, and who were being exploited by their parents.
The UN says more than 18,000 people took the Mediterranean and West African Atlantic routes to get to Europe in the first quarter of this year. Nouadhibou's position makes it a magnet for those coming from sub-Saharan Africa. It's close to the Canary Islands and also near Morocco. But many never reach their final destination. The UN's Migration Agency reports in 2025 alone, more than 1,300 died in the Mediterranean route and another 1,200 on the passage via the Atlantic Ocean. As anti-immigration sentiments rise in Europe, policies are getting stricter. A new EU pact on migration and asylum, which came into effect this month, will help manage the continent's borders. The new pact means fast-tracking asylum claims and quicker deportation of those rejected. Back at the literacy center in Nouadhibou, the impact is personal.
A boy was absent for a week. I tried to reach his parents but couldn't get through to understand why the child hadn't come to school. 10 days later, the other children let me know that he had left with his father for Spain. They made it safely, thank God.
In the face of uncertainty, others continue to study in the literacy center while they wait with their families. Zamalu Tuli, Africa Matters.
We head back to the DRC and follow Daniela Muleketsi Nsi, a top-ranked boxer fighting to bring the world title home despite ongoing conflict and an Ebola outbreak on her home turf. Grace Kuria Kanje has more on that story.
It's a typical day in Goma, Eastern DRC, but one woman stands out. She's 20-year-old Daniela Muleketsi, who in April boxed her way into the top 10 rankings of both the World Boxing Council and the International Boxing Organization.
To achieve this, you first need a lot of courage, discipline, hard work, and the support of the entire team. Being ranked in the world's top 10 was a challenge for me. I had to overcome this so that I can bring the world title back to our country, the DRC.
But life has not always been easy for her. The daughter of a primary school teacher and a second-hand shoe seller, Daniela was unable to attend university due to financial constraints.
First of all, I didn't choose boxing for the money. I chose boxing out of passion. And in our country, there is a war. Despite the war disrupting us somewhat, we always try to work to overcome.
At one point in 2023, she even considered joining the Congolese army during a recruitment drive, but her manager intervened.
She remains a courageous and a strong woman who understands the sacrifices and the effort she puts in to succeed. Every time she rises to challenge presented to her, she always tries to make the effort to overcome it, to win. And it's thanks to her own effort, primarily physically, and a great team behind her that she's been able to get where she is. It's more her effort than the team's, I mean.
Daniela is now encouraging more women and girls to step into the ring.
The message I can give to them is to stay strong and have confidence in themselves. We too can be useful to society if we want to.
Daniela hopes every punch she throws brings her one step closer to her dream of bringing home a world title. Grace Kurekanja, Africa Matters.
That's our show this week. Let us know if you think South Sudan will hold the first ever election in December, or share your thoughts about the stories you've seen. You can leave your comments on our Africa Matters YouTube page or on X. Thanks for watching, and it's goodbye from me, Brenda Zeda Radido.